Vina Colley started working as an electrician at the Portsmouth Gases Diffusion Plant, known locally as the A Plant or Ports, 45 years ago when she was 34. She was healthy, energetic, and passed every screening test from her doctor to make her an eligible worker. It wasn't until 3 years later, in 1983, that she started to get sick and break out in rashes. Although the plant closed in 2001, for the last 40 years, Colley has demanded that the A plant be properly cleaned up by workers who are told ahead of time that they will be exposed to harmful chemicals. Because of the risk those workers are taking, Colley wants them to receive hazardous pay. The fight intensified when the American Centrifuge plant, located east of U.S. Highway 23 in Piketon, announced it would begin enriching uranium in 2023. Even today, many residents and former workers face ongoing health consequences because of those plants. Centrus Energy partnered with the Department of Energy and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory to develop the uranium enrichment gas centrifuge technology. The American centrifuge could restore the Americans' domestic uranium enrichment for national security and commercial purposes, according to the Centrus's website. The information of centrifuges would put the U.S. at the top of the uranium enrichment technology. Before the American centrifuge plant, the U.S. had to rely on other countries, primarily Russia, to supply enriched uranium. In May 2024, former President Joe Biden signed H.R. 1042, a law banning the import of Russian-enriched uranium into the U.S. until 2040 if the Department of Energy concludes there is a threat to the U.S. national interests or a risk supply of disruption. In the last 30 years, the U.S. has purchased 25% of the enriched uranium product of its needs from Russia. For the U.S. to achieve its clean energy goals, the Department of Energy announced it needs new nuclear energy and to create nuclear fuel. A key process is enrichment. For 10 years, the U.S. did not have American-owned source of enriched uranium. The Paducah GDP, located in Kentucky, was the most recent uranium enrichment facility plant active from 1952 to 2013. The plant was the last government-owned uranium enrichment facility operating in the U.S. Now, Centrifuge is queued to bridge that gap with its Piketon plant. When Colley worked at Ports, she was exposed to harmful chemicals. She was confined in spaces cleaning off radioactive contaminated oil from the electric equipment while never having to wear a hazardous suit. She says she knew nothing else. Unfortunately, Colley is hardly an isolated case. Her family members from the area have their own stories to share. She lost a brother to pancreatic cancer, another brother to cell cancer, her husband to melanoma cancer, a brother-in-law to hand nodules that developed into cancer, his son had kidney cancer, and his wife had breast cancer. According to the 2023 Ohio Annual Cancer Report, between 2016 to 2020, Pike County had an average of 500.9 per 100,000 cancer incidence rate. Comparatively, between 2015 to 2019, the average Ohio rate is 465.3 and the national rate is 449.4, meaning there were roughly 60 more cancer incidents in Pike County than the national average. Colley is well known around the county for trying to help others who have experienced the same harmful side effects working at the plant. She is president of the Portsmouth Piketon Residents for Environmental Safety and Security, PRESS, or the co-founder of the National Nuclear Workers for Justice, NNWJ. Paula Spears, who works with Colley on efforts to create educational exposure with the health effects of the plant, recounts how long she watched her mother get increasingly ill the longer she worked at the A plant. Both Spears' mother and Colley both started developing rashes on their calves and hands. Their infected areas became extremely red, crusty, and itchy. When Spears' mother's condition worsened, she got an allergy test which showed she was allergic to petroleum. A year's worth of doctor's visits and hospital trips, practitioners finally noticed there was a problem with her mother's kidneys and liver. Spears' mother passed away when she was nearly 73 years old, a premature death. Her mother was never diagnosed with beryllium disease, but Spears was convinced otherwise. Between 1985 and 1987, Colley took a leave of absence from the A plant because she was too sick to work. During her absence, Colley never thought anything was wrong with the chemicals she worked with until the Department of Energy came knocking at her door questioning if she knew about the plant's oil. After that interaction, she knew something was wrong at work. In 1989, the Department of Energy established the Environmental Cleanup Program for the A plant site. 6 years later, the land was turned over to the Southern Ohio Diversification Initiative, SODI, which the Department of Energy designed to be the community reuse organization for this site. The organization's goal is to bolster the economy, utilize the land and facilities, and support local industry. Paul Mobley is an independent operations engineer and an anti-nuclear activist from Northwest Indiana. After reading about the enrichment facilities in Piketon, he said he wanted to do work there, which is then how he was introduced to Colley. Mobley is testing gamma and X-rays and alpha and beta particles. He is interested in testing the surrounding area of the plant site to find if anything is contaminated. One sample from the Little Beaver Creek, which is near the plant, yielded a beta level that was 3 times the legal limit set for the surface soil contamination. Mobley posts his data on YouTube to spread awareness about the issue. He says he is dedicated to collecting data and sharing it to help hold the A plant accountable for their lack of transparency about the site's cleanup efforts. Although the American centrifuge is already enriching uranium and has multiple other plans to add more nuclear plants to the site, Cawley and concerned Piketon residents say that they are committed to ensuring radioactive contamination at the A plant gets cleaned up. But Cawley is in it for the long fight. She and others are working to get Pike and Scioto counties added to the 1990 Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RECTA, which provides a one-time benefit payment to people who have become sick or died due to radiation exposure. Although Cawley's goals haven't yet been reached, she calls herself stubborn and plans to continue advocating for change in her community and speaking out for what she believes is right until workers and residents finally get acknowledged.